Hey buddies, PotatoMcWhiskey here, and welcome to our first look, analysis, and impressions of the Ottomans in Civilization 6 Gathering Storm. Without further ado, let's just jump right into it.
Suleiman leads the Ottomans in Civilization 6 Gathering Storm. He is commonly referred to as Suleiman the Magnificent, and personally led conquests to expand his empire while instituting societal reform. Suleiman's unique ability is Grand Vizier. This unlocks a unique governor, Ibrahim, with his own...
Okay, wow. So that's a really cool idea. I love the idea of getting a unique governor. I'd also, you know what, it would be really cool? Maybe I don't know if you could have it attached to a city-state, but I think there's a lot of cool ideas you could do with unique governors. But anyway, let's have a little bit of a look at Ibrahim. So he gives you 20% production to all military units in the city. That's pretty good. It's good. Seems like already the Ottomans is geared around military conquest. He's got the head falconer, which gives all friendly units fighting within the city plus 5 combat strength. That's kind of reminiscent of one of Victor's promotions. Then we've got the Kas Odabashi, which is when established in an allied foreign capital, alliance leveling rate is increased with the owner. Wait, does that mean you have to like conquer their city and then get an alliance with them? Or surely this would mean, surely this would mean he can be placed in other people's cities. Then we've got the Saraskar, grants all units within 10 tiles of the city center plus 10 combat strength when fighting when attacking defensible districts. Okay. So you could, presumably, you could put this guy in an enemy's capital. I'm not sure about that, though. We'd have to see. Kapu Aga. When established in a foreign capital, grievances from the city owner against you are reduced by 1 more per turn. Grievances are sort of important. I'm not sure how useful this is. I definitely think the 20% military production, Saraskar, so far, these two are looking like the good promotions. What's the final? Grand Vizier. When established in a foreign capital, none of the owner cities exert loyalty pressure on your cities. Wow. Okay, so if you can put him in your opponent's capital, you'll be able to get this promotion, stick him in your opponent's capital, get a plus 10 combat strength when fighting around the opponent's capital against districts, and any cities you conquer won't have loyalty problems. That's really great. This is a really cool and interesting governor that really changes how you can play the game. That's very cool.
Unique promotion tree. He's the only governor that can be established in another civilization and can be a major player in diplomacy. It also unlocks the Janissary, Suleiman's unique unit.
So it's 120 production, it costs 20 niter, 4 gold maintenance. It starts with a free promotion. It's stronger and cheaper than the Musketman. What is the... I gotta look that up now. Musketman Civ 6... the Musketman is currently in the game. It's 240 production. So you pay half the price for a unit of 5 higher combat strength with a free promotion. The city must have at least a population of 2. If the city is founded by the Ottomans and trains the Janissary, it loses a population. So I'm going to assume then if you train it in a city that you didn't found, then it doesn't lose a population, which is interesting. Very, very powerful unit. Very interesting.
Musketman replacement is stronger and cheaper to build, and starts with a free promotion, but it consumes a population in the city in which it is trained, unless it is trained in a conquered city.
Okay.
The Ottomans' unique building is the Grand Bazaar. It replaces the bank in the commercial...
So the Grand Bazaar is a bank replacement. Accumulate 1 extra strategic resource for every different type of strategic resource the city has improved. Okay, that's actually really powerful, especially for a civ that's looking like it's geared towards conquest. And you kind of want to get your commercial hubs up in a conquest game so that you can supply your army with money. And you receive +1 amenity for every luxury resource the city has improved. So it seems like it's actually a really reasonably powerful building. Now the real question is how much does the bank cost to produce? Bank Civ 6. I want to say, yeah, so it's slightly cheaper than the bank. You get about a 45 production discount when you're building the Grand Bazaar based on the game speed, which is very, very interesting. So it's a little bit cheaper, which makes it a little bit more viable. It gives you gold, it gives you all the normal stuff, but it just makes your strategic resources and
adds
luxuries
extra
better.
Amenities and strategic resources that are available in that city. Their unique unit is the Barbary Corsair. This naval raider replaces the privateer, but can be built earlier. Also, coastal raids have no movement cost for this unit.
Okay, that's actually really powerful because they've actually changed how raiding works in the expansion. I think we heard about that in one of the previous live streams. They talked about how the value of pillaging goes up now with the game, like as the game progresses. So that's actually really nice. I think it's based on the area you're in. I can't remember. But basically, as the game progresses, you get more and more from pillaging. So this actually makes pillaging much more useful, and having a unit that pillages is pretty powerful, especially if it pillages for no movement points.
The Ottomans' unique ability is Great Turkish Bombard. They can construct siege units much faster, and all siege units receive additional combat strength. Conquered cities do not lose population, and benefit from amenity and loyalty bonuses while under Ottoman control. As the Ottomans, the medieval and Renaissance eras will be your prime time for conquest. Use your powerful siege units to topple foreign cities, and Ibrahim's abilities as governor to secure them. Those cities then serve as ideal places to build more janissaries, and you can maintain this overwhelming force by building your Grand Bazaar in a number of cities. Will you?
That's very interesting. So let's go have a look at the Ottomans' abilities here, so we can kind of spend a bit of time talking about them as a whole. So to start with, right now my impression is that the Ottomans don't have like super duper powerful abilities, but they do have a very unique style of play, and most of their power comes from that unique style of play, in that they can play incredibly aggressively, and then they have tools to completely ignore loyalty problems from conquest, and also reduce grievances. So that's very, very interesting for the Ottomans. They have a very sort of aggressive diplomacy style of play. So you could go to war, say medieval Renaissance, and then spend the rest of the game sort of tech switching to something else. So that's a really, really interesting idea. You could spend like the ancient era, say ancient classical, building up to prepare a military push in the medieval era. Then you do a medieval push in the medieval Renaissance with, you know, the janissaries and all knights and all that sort of regular normal stuff that most people would use during those eras. And then you can transition out of it, say, once you're halfway through the industrial era. It's very interesting. It's very, very cool. That's sort of my overall impression of it. So they have the Grand Vizier, which you've talked about a little bit, and the Janissary. I think this is probably not like super powerful. There are a couple of powerful abilities inside of the Grand Vizier, but there's a lot of competition for governor points. Even in Rise and Fall, and I imagine that's only going to get worse in Gathering Storm with the updates that are coming to governors. So hopefully... So I think it's kind of like, this is either going to be something you build your game around, the unique governor, or it's going to be something you ignore. And I think if you're playing the Ottomans, you may as well be playing around their abilities. So I think that's going to be, at the very least, it's going to make the game more interesting. The Janissary is incredibly powerful. I think it's going to give them some insane sort of late medieval, early Renaissance power, especially since it's so cheap and it has an extra bit of combat strength and starts with a free promotion. Very, very powerful unit. Then we have the Great Turkish Bombard, which gives us a 50% production towards siege units. That's really, really powerful. 50% production is an insane amount, especially since there's really not any cards in the game that give you a production bonus towards siege units, and their siege units gain +5 combat strength against district defenses. That's basically like a free promotion. So you build them 50% faster, which is like you can produce 33% more of them roughly. Because if in the time it takes a normal civilization to build 2 of them, you can build 3. So you get you get like a, you know what I mean? You have, it's equivalent to a 33% cost reduction to, siege units, which is really, really powerful. Getting +5 combat strength is really, really cool. Then conquered cities not losing population is quite powerful too, because that's sort of double dipping in a lot of the Ottomans' abilities. Now, there is a worry, though, about amenities, but they do have bonuses towards that. We'll talk a little bit. So one of the problems when you conquer a city is that the population crashes, and then you have a loyalty problem because loyalty is based on the population of the city, and they've got a bunch of high population cities surrounding you. The only downside of this is that typically high population conquered cities are going to have really low amenities, but they do have that +1 amenity to sort of alleviate that a little bit. I don't know if that's going to be enough to really sort of quote unquote counter the downside of having a full population conquered, but there's a lot of upsides to having the full population, right? You can immediately start building new districts. You have a lot of population to work with. You can work a lot of different tiles, etc., etc. The +4 loyalty per turn is sort of, again, double dipping in the whole loyalty game aspect that they have. So this is what I would, and especially actually, I feel like the Ottomans were actually built for me, because my favorite way to play the game is with infantry and siege units, and that's literally what the Ottomans are. It's like, we make infantry really, really cheaply, and we make siege units really, really quickly. And it's like, somebody at Firaxis was like, you know what we will do? We'll make a civilization for PotatoMcWhiskey, because he loves infantry and siege. And it also makes the privateer very interesting. I'd like to know what technology or civic it's unlocked at. But yeah, I'm really happy with this civilization. It's a very, I think a lot of the conquest civs come online like classical era. Like if you think about it, Rome, they get their conquest going in the classical era. Alexander, they come online in the classical era. The Mongols, they come online in the classical era with horsemen. Scythia comes online in the classical era. Gilgamesh, he comes online in the ancient era. I'm trying to think who else. The Zulus, they come online in the classical era. Well, technically the medieval era, but if you're rushing correctly, you can get the Impy in classical. So you kind of see what I'm coming from. A lot of the civs are built around coming online very, very early for conquest, whereas the Ottoman seems to be built around you spend a bit of time building up, and then medieval Renaissance comes, and you just explode out and start murdering everyone. More so the Renaissance. I really like the idea of having a civilization that kind of bides its time until the Renaissance and then overwhelms their neighbors. I think that's really, really cool. I really like that. I mean, that's not to say you can't go to war early, but it's like you can kind of spend your time building up around this timing when you're going to have a window of extreme power, and then exploit that window of extreme power, which is really, really interesting. I really like the Grand Bazaar, because what it's actually going to mean for the Ottomans, the Grand Bazaar, is that you're going to be thinking about where to place your commercial hubs more than, like most civilizations, like it's like, okay, I want a trade route and I want a bit of gold. I'm going to place my commercial hub beside a river, and this city has a river, so therefore I'll place it there. Whereas with the Ottomans, you're going to be thinking about, where do I have luxuries improved, and where do I have strategic resources improved? And so you're not going to worry so much about getting that river adjacency, and it's more about, I want the long-term benefits of building the Grand Bazaar. I want more strategic resources, particularly for late-game strategic resources like oil, which we know are going to be used to as upkeep for certain units like tanks. The Ottomans are just going to be able to support more of those units because they have extra strategic resource generation, which is really, really powerful in my opinion. So yeah, the Grand Bazaar is a very, very interesting building. I would go as far as to say that this is possibly one of the most interesting to play military civilizations that's ever been put into a Civ game, purely because of how their abilities interact and the fact that their abilities actually offer unique ways to adapt to the game state. In a lot of the civilizations, it's like, here's a powerful unit, here's a powerful infrastructure that helps you support war. Go kill people with this unit. Whereas the Ottomans, it's like, here is a play style, and here is a unique thing that you can do to mitigate the downsides of war, and here is And here is a piece of infrastructure that you're going to use differently than anyone else in the game. And I think that's really, really interesting. I think they've done a really, really good job of making an interesting civilization to play. And I'm really excited to play the Ottomans. Like, I mean, they look incredibly fun. I really don't think they're the strongest civ in the game. I don't even think they're probably a top tier conquest civ. But I think they're going to be, they're going to offer a different kind of experience, in my opinion. That's actually something I'm really welcome. I'm sort of quite open to and quite welcoming of in Gathering Storm, because I was, one of my little complaints, you can probably already tell, was that a lot of the domination civs were like, here's a bunch of combat bonuses, here's a unique unit, and here's a bonus to loyalty, go nuts, right? Whereas the Ottomans, it very much feels like, here's a sort of flexible overview of sort of, you've got some combat bonuses, your siege units are stronger, you have a unique melee unit, but then they were also like, but here's an option to go navy, and here's a way to interact with other civilizations in a unique way, and here's a way to interact with your own terrain and infrastructure management in a unique way that no other civilization has with the Grand Bazaar. I think that's really, really great. I think it's, the jokes of, you need a high IQ to play the Ottomans, but I think it is going to make it so that the players who are playing the Ottomans, who sort of plan around their bonuses, are going to have a really, really fun and rewarding time. Whereas I don't think that's necessarily true with a civilization like Sumeria, because it's just like, train war carts and murder everyone on the map. Very excited to play the Ottomans. I'm trying to think, what else could I talk about a little bit here? I think we've basically covered all the abilities. I suppose what we'll do is we'll quickly just scan through the video and look for perhaps any things that haven't been shown before. Like, usually they have little foreshadowings, and I haven't done this in a while. So that looks like deer, normal floodplaining stuff, military tradition. We'll just kind of look for anything that hasn't really been announced necessarily. Any little tidbits that have been slipped in here. Now, I think most of this stuff has been announced. I don't really see much of a difference to the thingy, the promotion tree. That's normal stuff. There's the Terracotta Army. That's the Mausoleum. Artemis. Canals, turtles. Okay. No, I don't think they really have
in that city.
Much less to reveal on that front. Like sneaking in little things. Now, they might have snuck in a natural wonder somewhere, which they tend to do. I can't tell what that is. Probably coal or iron. It's Jebel Barkal, I think. Yeah, I don't think they've really snuck in anything in terms of the whole, they haven't snuck in any little secrets there, at least not from my casual little scan on the map. But very interesting civilization. I would say, of all the civilizations that they have released so far, a lot of them have been very passive or defensive, or culture, or tourism, or diplomacy, etc. Whereas I feel like this Ottoman civ is really very heavily militaristic focused, but they do military in a very different way, and that's something I really like about them. So I'll let Civilization 6 play you out.
A number of cities. Will you turn the eyes of the world to your victories? How will you lead the Ottomans? In Sid Meier's Civilization 6 Gathering Storm.
And there you go. I can't wait. I actually... This is Valentine's Day. And I did have plans for this year's Valentine's Day. But I made new plans for Gathering Storm. We're probably going to do a live stream. that day on Twitch. Anyway, I love you all very much. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.